Hi, my name is Jay Sugarman, and I want to welcome you to Innovation Showcase. The main purpose of this ongoing series is to inform viewers about exciting innovations and creative individuals across the fields of business, science, technology, education, and the arts. Today, via Zoom, we're fortunate to have as our guest Rolando Pujol. Rolando is an award-winning journalist and the creator of the Retrologist, a popular project celebrating America's roadside treasures. He spent decades exploring neon signs, diners, motels, and quirky landmarks across the country. And now he's captured that spirit in his new book, The Great American Retro Road Trip, a celebration of roadside Americana. During the program, we'll find out why and how the book came about. We'll take a tour of some of the engaging roadsides throughout the country, and in the process, come to better understand and appreciate those places that make the open road so unforgettable. Let's start by meeting Rolando and then finding out all about the Great American Retro Road Trip, a celebration of roadside Americana. Welcome, Rolando. So delighted to be able to be here.
I'm excited to be here, Jay. I wish I could be there in person because I'm always jonesing for a good road trip, but this will have to do.
Most definitely. Well, first of all, congratulations on the book. I
Thank
mean,
you.
it's extremely informative, entertaining, and it definitely caused me to reflect on my days growing up in Quincy, home of the first Dunkin' Donuts and
Yes,
Howard Johnson restaurant.
yes.
So brought back some wonderful memories for sure. Before we hear all about the book, I think it would be of interest if you just take a brief time to share anything else you might like about your background, professional interests.
Sure. So my day job, I'm an executive producer at a television station in New York, WABC TV, and that the flagship station of the ABC network. So this is definitely for me a marvelous job, a dream job working at this iconic station that I grew up watching. And I'm also lucky that in my other life as a roadside photographer and journalist, I get to explore these places that have also been lifelong sort of obsessions and interests of mine. My journey to this book was not a quick one. I know in many respects, I am a late bloomer. I probably had this book in me for decades, but I only got around to writing it, a couple of years ago when. All the work that I had been doing for about a decade on social media began to pick up some steam and get some interest. And I heard, much to my surprise and delight and shock, frankly, from a publisher in New York here, Artisan Books, part of Hachette. And they said, "Have you ever thought about writing a book about this stuff? It's pretty interesting." And I said, "Have I ever? I have been waiting for this call my entire life. Where have you been? Sort of like Lana Turner at Schwab's Pharmacy, waiting for like where I'm ready for my close up, darn it. So yeah, so that was back in late 22, and we had a contract in hand, and I was off to preparing the book. And it's been an incredible, I mean, pun intended, journey. A lot of the research, of course, had been done over the years prior to my even hearing from the publisher, but a good deal of it also was done over the past year in travel and research and interviews and all that I had to do to put this thing together. I mean, this book is 320 pages long. It's got close to, if not over, 1,000 photos. I haven't actually counted.
Unbelievable.
It's really quite a lot. People often say, "Oh, it's a nice coffee table book," and I'm like, "No, have you looked at it?" I mean, yes, you could put it on a coffee table. And by the way, I'm not dismissing coffee table books per se, but it's not that kind of book necessarily. There's great pictures in it, but there's a lot of text in it, and there's a lot there to support the pictures and give them context. But anyway, that's sort of the short version of how this all came to be.
No, you're a wonderful storyteller, and it truly enhances the incredible photographs that chock full of every page. But the information they provided is wonderful. Just a quick note before we really jump into the book. What first sparked your fascination with retro roadside Americana?
Well, I do think that like a lot of passions in life, you can trace them back to early experiences in life. And to me, my earliest memories are of driving around in Westchester County, New York, with my parents. We lived in grew up. I grew up in Sleepy Hollow, New York, so that's a place that's already suffused with history and lore. Washington Irving, the Headless Horseman, even though it was called North Tarrytown back then, but nevertheless. I think that sort of set the stage at an early age for an interest in history and in the built environment around me. And as a kid, we would, on our travels through the area, pass all kinds of what we would call roadside Americana, roadside giants like muffler men at an old Amoco station. There was a Holiday Inn not far from where I grew up that had a massive great sign, which is an extraordinary sight. There's only one, there's two really out there that you can still see. One is at the American Sign Museum in Cincinnati, which is featured in the book. And there was a gas station in Hartsdale, or a service station that had a Smiling Bear automotive center. And these things would intrigue me and fascinate me. I'd see, shiny chrome diners with neon signs and sparkling little jaunty cocktails, a kingbow on the sign. And this stuff would just like intrigue me. And but I think the interest only deepened when I began to notice that these places were going away. One day the Holiday Inn sign was gone. One day the Smiling Bear sign had been removed for something else. And I began to realize how precious all of these attractions were. But I would say the bulk of my life, the interest was that of a hobbyist, kind of keeping an eye on these things, occasionally maybe
Mhm.
stopping for a photo. But it wasn't really until I would say about 50 or so years ago that I realized that these places really truly are endangered. They're fascinating, and the curiosity got the better of me. And so I began to really photograph them and look for them in a more determined way, initially sharing them on Flickr, then Twitter, then Instagram, and Substack, and eventually a book. But the
Mhm.
roots of this project are in a 4-year-old kid with a wide-eyed sense of wonder, who I think has never really gone away. He's still lurking inside me.
Wonderful. Well, I think we'd all do well to keep that type of individual close by in whatever we do. Before we enjoy a wonderful sampling of the images that you've put together for us, just a quick word of how you organize the book and the different features, which I found terrific to go to in each chapter.
Sure. Good question. That was the hardest challenge, which was what was I trying to accomplish with the book? And I organized it like a travel book, in the sense that it is divided by geography, and then within those geographic chunks of the country, we've got New England, the Mid-Atlantics, the Southeast. California gets its own chapter. Only state that does, and I've gotten some grief from Texans who are like, "Wait, you gave California its own chapter, but not Texas? Do you realize Texas was a republic once?" But whatever, maybe the next book, Texas will get its own chapter, I
There
promise.
we go.
But Massachusetts too, New England. But but no, I decided to break it up geographically. Then within those sections, break it up into categories. So roadside quirks, which are roadside giants, buildings that are quote unquote ducks that look like the object that they sell or represent. Uh, uh, Roadside eats, so restaurants and diners and fast food chains. Cheers, which is a section focused exclusively on bars and taverns, things like that. Motels and hotels get their own segment. And then there's also pullovers, which are little sidebars that don't quite fit in anywhere, that I figured I wanted to include, but couldn't find a way to weave them in. So we sort of broke those out. And we have interesting sidebars looking at a variety of things from national fast food chains to interesting historic buildings that are worthy of discussion, to other things. So all that. So that's how it's organized. And 320 pages of that, coast to coast, with the deepest apologies to the people of Alaska and Hawaii, who were not at all represented in the book. You could, I suppose you could drive to Alaska. You cannot drive to Hawaii, so far as I know, but maybe with one of those duck boats, talking of
There
ducks.
we go. There
But
we go.
it's certainly in a future book, I'd like to get to even more parts of the country.
Terrific, terrific. Well, that's very helpful. Let's take advantage of the assembly that you've put together and please take us through the images with commentary.
Absolutely, my pleasure. So let's get behind the wheel here of the book. These are some pictures of me in action, so to speak, in various spots around the country. The Brooks Catsup bottle in Collinsville, Illinois. The artist material, Carter Sexton Artist Materials in North Hollywood, California. They gave me access to the roof so that I could take that picture. Everything Lincoln in Illinois, lots of fun stuff. The Big Fish Supper Club near Bena, Minnesota. Just fascinating places all around.
Yeah.
This is how we sort of broke up the country, so in different sections, and the pages are color coded to help you sort of get through it from New England, from sea to shining sea. There we are. And I'll focus in our conversation here on some of my favorite roadside quirks.
Wonderful.
Like this guy here, I got this on my very last day on the road, and thank goodness I did. This is in Fromberg, Montana. It's just a Apex Auto Repair, but they have this nice little car on a pole for all to enjoy and
That's
admire.
fabulous.
I loved it. This is extraordinary. There was an old picture, I think it might have been by John Margolis, I'm not sure, but that had been floating around the internet. And I was hoping, wouldn't it be neat to find this, for the book? And I didn't know of one. And sure enough, on my last trip, there it was, so that was a bit fortuitous. But I wanted to talk about, I wanted to start with these two pictures. And we've got giant peanuts. On the left, we have a smiling depiction of James Earl Carter, former president.
Yeah.
This was created for the 1976 campaign for president, which of
Ah,
course he won. It was initially in Evansville, Indiana, and made its way to Plains, Georgia, Jimmy Carter's hometown. It is said that President Carter was not a fan of this and had a bit of a love-hate relationship with it, but I wonder why. But nevertheless, it is a treasure of the roadside, and I've been hoping to spot it for years. Carter, Plains, Georgia, is just a fascinating trip in general for those who love presidential history. The whole town is really built around Carter, and
mm,
just recently they opened up Carter's family, not the residence yet. They're still working on that, but the property for the first time ever has been opened, and you can visit his grave and that of Rosalind. So that's sort of just hot off the
mm.
presses if you're
Wonderful.
planning on a trip down that way. On the right is a gigantic Mr. Peanut, who used to be outside of a Planter's Peanuts shop in Peabody, Massachusetts. And then later on, he fell into disuse. The property went from being a peanut shop to the $50 bar right there in Peabody along Route 1. And then he was painted black, and he was kind of like a tuxedo kind of look.
Mm,
And then a roadside enthusiast, somebody just like a kindred spirit back in the 1980s, reached out to the Planters Company, and they moved him to the Planters facility in Fort Smith, Arkansas, where you
huh.
can now see him. He's been beautifully restored, and he's out there on the lawn. So a little New England history that's made its way to the heartland of the country.
Nice.
And these are some of my favorites. The fellow on the left is the Amoco, now BP Giant, that is located in Elmsford, New York, off of 287, plus the Cross County Expressway. And this was, I suppose, my introduction to roadside Americana,
Mm,
because this is about like a 5-minute drive from where I grew up, where my
ah,
parents still live.
ah.
And I remember thinking this was this structure, which I used to call, my parents are from Cuba, and I was born here, but Spanish was my first language as a child speaking at home. So I would always call him El Gigante, the giant. And I just loved him. And I thought he was unique, as many people do. And then I quickly figured that there were hundreds of his fellow tribesmen and women as well across the country, all created by this company in California, in Venice, called International Fiberglass. And these gigantic roadside attractions could advertise really, it could be suited for any business. They could be holding mufflers. That's why they're called mufflermen's, or in the case of the picture on our right, this is the Wilson Carpet Man in New Jersey City. He's holding a giant roll of carpet.
Mm,
And if you're familiar with The Sopranos, you've seen this fella
yeah.
because he is in the opening credits as Tony Soprano whizzes through New Jersey on his way home. There's a whole museum dedicated to these giants. It's called
Huh.
yeah, it's in Atlanta, Illinois. There's an Atlanta, Illinois, which is a great town for roadside Americana. There was already a gigantic Paul Bunyan hot dog man there prior to the arrival of this museum, but this museum, wonderfully curated. There's a Texaco Big Friend to your left right there. And then inside there are some heads of different models of roadside giants, the Uniroyal Gal on the right, and the Mortimer Snurd, the Happy Halfwit on the left. And you'll see examples of these around the country as well.
Fabulous.
But one of my favorite spots for these roadside giants is Tulsa, Oklahoma. And
Mm,
the woman in the middle is Mary Beth Babcock, and she has an army of these giants that she has arrayed and had created there in Tulsa, which makes sense as it's one of the great towns and one of the great stops of Route 66, which
hmm.
is celebrating its 100th anniversary
Ah,
next year. So it's a big year for road trips. Route 66 might be the year to do it next year because of this anniversary. And she has installed not three, you only see three here, but four roadside giants in town, various businesses that she
wow.
runs and or supports. So get out to Tulsa if you can.
For
Um,
sure.
we have discussed, of course, the Big Duck out in Flanders, New York, and this is sort of the granddaddy of them all. I mean, even though the coffee pot, which you can see in the bottom left, that might be a little bit older, dating back to the 1920s out in Bedford, PA. The Big Duck has become sort of symbolic of this quote unquote mimetic programmatic architecture, which is architecture that looks like the product that is sold,
Mm,
or the corporate identity of the business at hand. And the Big Duck was created by a duck farmers, as you might expect, who
mm.
wanted to create a bold sort of statement for their business out in the east end of Long Island, and they were said to have been inspired by a visit to a gigantic coffee pot, and it may have been lost to history, but I suspect be the coffee pot in Bedford, Pennsylvania, along the Lincoln
Okay.
Highway, which is on our
Uh-huh.
left. And we also see in this picture the world's largest teapot in Chester, West Virginia. Bob's Java Jive. This is out in Washington State, as is the Teapot Dome gas station, which was built in the 1920s as a bizarre, curious tribute to the Teapot Dome scandal that
Mm,
was before Watergate was one of the biggest scandals to
right.
hit a presidential administration. It is
Yep.
preserved in roadside Americana, which is funny. And then here we are in Ohio on the left, in Newark, Ohio, and the giant Longaberger basket building called the Big Basket. And this was the global headquarters of Longaberger Baskets and created by Dave Longaberger. In the late 90s, you might recall, Longaberger baskets were all the rage.
Mm,
And they were even part of the swag kit giving away on one Academy Award night, I think in 99 or 2000. So
mm.
they were a big deal, these things. And fortunately, the company hit some difficulties after Longaberger passed away. And the building, as last check, is, believe it or not, empty. There was some discussion about turning it into a hotel of some kind, but it remains there and hopefully it does have a bright future. Nothing prepares you for driving down the road on the way to the basket and seeing this giant basket in the distance. It's just extraordinary. And then to the right is the Big Fish Supper Club, which I mentioned earlier, one of my favorite places, and still very much in business. I wanted to take us now to on the left to New England, and
Fabulous.
we are up in Leicester, Vermont, and that is her name is Big Connie. She's a gigantic, as you can see, gorilla, concrete
Wow.
gorilla who's holding up a Volkswagen Beetle, and it was created by a pioneering female auto shop owner. She was the first woman to own an auto shop in, I believe, Vermont, or in Vermont, I believe. And she teamed up with TJ Neal, a Florida-based artist who works in concrete, to create some sort of attraction to highlight her business, their Pioneer Auto Sales. And they
Mm.
came up with this beauty back in 1987, and it's still there, right? I mean, you got to love it.
Fabulous.
And to the right is another similar monster. It reminds me of a golem, like sort of emerging from the
Yes.
earth, right?
Yep.
You know, he's
Yep.
absolutely frightening, but he's actually called Miles the Monster, and he's at the racetrack, the NASCAR racetrack down at the Dover Motor
Mhm.
Speedway in Dover, Delaware. And he's a fairly recent roadside attraction. He only dates back to 2008,
Hmm.
but he's a fiberglass thing of beauty or horror, depending on your perspective, right? I mean, look at those little red shiny eyes,
That's
but very cool. And then we've discussed the great orange dinosaur of Saugus, Massachusetts. He's on the left right there, a leftover from a what used to be a miniature golf course that was there, right there in the heart of all those wonders of Route One, the Kowloon restaurant, the Hilltop Steakhouse. These iconic locations. There's even a retro style McDonald's right across the street with golden
Mm.
arches. Just a fun little stretch of Massachusetts right there. The golf
Definitely.
course is gone. The property was redeveloped, but fortunately they had the good sense to keep the orange dinosaur, and he has a social media presence, so you can find him on Instagram and
Terrific.
keep up with
Terrific.
his adventures. And to the right is another dinosaur, the Vernal dinosaur, which is out in Vernal, Utah. Used to be outside of a now closed motel, but the town very astutely kept the dinosaur and kept her. And now she's sort of the official town greeter when you drive into town. So some dinosaurs right there. Good stuff.
For sure, for sure. These are incredible. How hard was it to limit the number of images, the number of places that you visited in the book? Because these are incredible to share. What was that process like?
Oh, it was really, really hard. I mean, it's the hardest part of this book wasn't so much looking for material, but deciding what to include and what not to include. And there were some painful cuts or things that I didn't get to that I wish I had, or things that I perhaps neglected to include that I wish I had as well. That was very, very hard part of it. But I try not to focus too much on what got left in or what we didn't get to, because the idea of the book was really ultimately to celebrate these places and to bring awareness about these places. And so once you've seen one, you get a sense for what they are. And my hope is that it then plants a seed in you as the reader to start looking for them, but then also getting out there and supporting them. Because this is really, there was a social mission behind this book. This is a book that I hope sells well, but I have no aspirations for this to be the project that lets me retire early. I mean, this is not a money-making venture as much as I hope it becomes a money-making venture for some of the places that are profiled in it, because people uh, like you and me will go out there and support these places and talk about them and share them on social media and widen their circle of influence and awareness. Because I shudder at the thought of these places closing. And already, since the book was published, since I went to press in at the end of December of last year, quite a number of places have closed or in some way been changed. And all the more reason why I wanted to do this. In a way, you might argue that, well, in today's world with social media, so many ways of communicating in the moment and reaching millions of people, many more people than could ever be reached by a book in just minutes, depending on something goes viral on TikTok. Why do a book? And for me, it really was about it's important for things to be, there's something powerful about publishing something and having a physical copy of something, because
Mhm.
Instagram and Facebook, we've been around long enough to see that social media platforms, they come and they go. The photos on your phone, There might be thousands of photos there, but will they always be there, right? They're not going to get printed into an album. So they may disappear when you sell the phone, right? Or get another phone, right? So there's something valuable in having something, permanent. And that's why I did the book, because I know 100 years from now, when perhaps most of these places are gone, um, the book will still be around. And I hope um, that some of the places will survive in part because of the attention they got from the book or publications like it.
Wonderful, wonderful. In closing, what do you hope readers will feel or do after finishing reading The Great American Retro Road Trip?
I hope they just get out there and hit the road, plan a trip. And when it comes to trip planning, what I generally do, I certainly do research. I have a map, virtual map for every state in the country with little dots everywhere. It looks like a really bad case of the measles, but I've got my documentation, and I'll plan my trips loosely. I'll have 3 or 4 different locations I want to see, but generally I try to keep it loose. Plan carefully, but not too carefully, because you want to enjoy serendipity and discovery. And if you hit a place that's interesting, you want to spend a little more time there, do that. In fact, when I'm on a road trip, I never know where I'm going to spend the night until 6 or 7 in the evening. I like to try
Ah.
to keep things loose so I'm not focused on getting to one place when I discovered something else that's in the totally opposite direction, right? Which can be tricky. I mean, be smart about that, because sometimes you might get left in the lurch. I haven't been yet, but I'll usually call up my app around 8 o'clock and say, okay, I'm getting as far as this town. There is something available, and I'll stay there, because again, I like the trips to have some planning, because you want to have some idea of what you're doing, but allow yourself to take detours. If you're going down a road and you see a little sign for a town you've never heard of that says historic downtown, next stop, pull over, see what you find. This is about discovery, but this is also about communicating and meeting people and getting to know each other as Americans. I mean, we are living through a time of great division. The more that we can get out there and mingle with each other, coast to coast, coast to coast, I think the better for all of us.
And I think having fun, as you've exemplified in the book, in your presentation today, what a wonderful opportunity just to enjoy all that's out in and out through all the different areas of the country. Well, unfortunately, we've come to the end of the program, Rolando. How can viewers and others keep in touch or find out more about your upcoming endeavors?
Absolutely. Of course, I'm on social media, so you can find me on Instagram under my name, Rolando Pujol. I also have a newsletter on the platform Substack, which you can subscribe to, and I'll send you a few emails a week with updates from the roadside essays I write about interesting things. And then, of course, I have a book site as well, rolandopujolbook.com. So just Google my name, and you can find all sorts of interesting things and find out what I'm up to.
Oh, fabulous. Well, thanks again. This has been a real treat having you. As I said, I've enjoyed the book. It's one to keep going back and finding out more every reading about, and definitely motivated me to pay attention more to where I am locally, and one of these days visit some of the incredible places throughout the country that you've highlighted and made me aware of. So thank you for that, and continued success with future endeavors.
Thank you, Jay, and happy motoring.
Wonderful, wonderful. Also want to thank those of you watching for joining us, and hope you'll be able to tune in next time.